Hello and welcome to Make It Happen with Will Polston. I'm Will Polston. This is episode number 121, and in this episode I'm joined by James Eager. Now James has been a professional bass guitar player and double bass player for well over the past 10 years. He's been fortunate that his vocation has found him in many exciting situations, from recording at Abbey Road Studios to performing at Wembley Arena in London and on the West End and touring theatres such as We Will Rock You, The Lion King and Dirty Dancing. Thousands of gigs later, he loves sharing the experience he's picked up from being at the coalface, and James has actually been a private client of mine, and we're going to be discussing the challenges of living your passion and some of the experiences that he's had as a result of us working together. So James, welcome to the show.
Hey man, it's great to be here. This is going to be a super fun one. It's great to reconnect, have a chat with you, and also let your readers listen in and check out, I guess, what we got up to.
Absolutely, yeah. It's quite nice. It's like, it feels like the good old days, except we've got a few thousand people earwigging on the conversation. So looking forward to it.
So, yeah, totally, man.
For people that don't know you, we just heard a little moment ago in terms of what you've been up to, but you have over the last few years had quite an impact on people around the world that have wanted to learn, improve and develop playing the bass guitar, right? Which is quite a niche area of business, but we'll come to that in a moment. But the thing that I'm always fascinated by is why people do what they do and how they got to the point that they're doing what they're doing. So you are essentially living your passion. So for people that are listening right now, if we can kind of go back and sort of go back to the beginning of how you even got into playing bass and then how that's developed into doing what you do now, I think it would be really quite good for people that are listening.
Yeah, sure, man. I'll keep the backstory brief, but let's start off. I was a musician. Well, I am a musician, and my passion was always music at school. And when it came time to leave school, I went to music college. I spent 4 years at what is called a conservatoire in central London. And after that, that kind of prepped me for the industry. And I started, I think what was probably, I was also teaching at a couple of days a week at that particular juncture in time, and wanting to be the very best bass guitar player and successful in the world of bass guitar and respected and all of that kind of stuff. And I was very fortunate. I did a lot of good stuff. I mean, I guess the more high profile stuff that people will know is I worked on a bunch of West End shows like We Will Rock You, Saturday Night Fever, Spamalot and Dirty Dancing, a bunch of them like that. And worked at a really high level at that. I mean, as we may discuss in a bit, I discovered that the work I was doing had a very high or sort of unhealthy tolerance rate, shall we say. Like I would go on shows where you'd have, I don't know, a 25% tolerance or 0.5% tolerance. And actually one of the big learnings, I'm kind of going slightly off topic now, was that the rest of the world wasn't like that, as I started to discover. So at that point, I knew there was something more that I wanted to do. I always had this entrepreneurial leaning as well. As I discovered, I've been kind of doing entrepreneurial type stuff since the aged 16. I always remember you describing yourself as a bit of a dull boy when you were at school.
Yeah,
I was kind of, I guess, the same as that, but probably in a bit of more of a middle class kind of way. And so I was always doing that, and I had a band going at the same time. So I was putting bands into weddings and corporate events and all of that kind of stuff. And I got to the point where our turnover was hitting VAT registration point. And I can't remember what that was at the time, 70, 80,000 a year, I guess. And it was like, this is really starting to turn into something. And at that same time, I was starting to get a bit despondent with the teaching and the gigging world and that kind of stuff. I needed a new, fresh challenge. And so I left that world behind and went into pushing a business in the events world. That was an amazing time, but one hell of a cash flow roller coaster. But I've got some incredible memories from taking bands to places like India and Dubai and Paris and stuff like that. And it was really cool, but not great for the stress levels, I would say. And we discovered via the world of business coaching at that point that we had a marketing problem that we needed to solve. And that was when I started discovering the world of online marketing. And I was like, this is really interesting. I guess I was like 34, 35 at that time, something like that anyway. And I was ready to learn something new. I was ready to get absolutely obsessive like I did when I was like in my teens and going into music college about music, but starting to learn business. And because I'd always been fascinated by why people buy what they buy. I mean, and marketing really is the psychology of why people buy, isn't it? And it was almost like the psychology degree that I didn't do at that point, but like kind of doing it in the trenches. And off the back of that, and it was kind of one of those stories of out of adversity. It was like things were so kind of tumultuous with the work that we're doing in the events industry. It's like, I need to go back and do some teaching again. And I thought to myself, like, one of my drivers is always moving forward. And I thought, well, I'm going to get some students again locally just to pay the bills, but we'll do it via Facebook ads because I've been learning all about that, and we'll do that. So I put some ads up and in the area, absolute crickets, like nothing. It was like so depressing it wasn't true. And I was like, well, this one isn't easy. But then I thought, Skype, right, hold on, we've got a worldwide audience here. Let's see if we can do that. And so I remember a well-known guy in the Facebook ads industry who played guitar also said to me, why don't you put this cheat sheet out there? It's called 5 killer rock bass licks that you can learn in less than 5 minutes. And put it up there, people exchange it for an email address, see what happens. And we were talking before this call, weren't we, about Jay Abraham, and one of his quotes was, what's the most important thing to have? A starving market. And I'd gone from an industry that was like bashing a head against the brick wall. It was a lot of fun, but hard, to going, hold on, people want this. And then that was the start of me going into the information world and teaching people how to play the bass guitar. Let's fast forward six years or something like that. I'm now here having a conversation with you all about it. So and that was the genesis of the bass guitar business, and kind of a potted history, I guess, of how I got there.
Yeah, which I think is really interesting. So, as for people that are regular listeners to the podcast and listen to the episodes from way back when, one of the things that I love doing, and I have a mission to inspire 1 billion people to transform excuses into results and live a life that they love. And in order to live a life that you love, I believe that it needs to be the perfect blend of the things that you most value. So for you, one of those things that you highly value is music, specifically playing the bass guitar. That's evident. You went to music college, you did those things, you worked on, like you say, the big West End shows like Dirty Dancing and We Will Rock You and all those things. And what you also clearly had a passion in, albeit maybe you wouldn't have necessarily described it at the time, was entrepreneurship, right? So solving people's problems with a solution they paid money for. So when you were putting bands in weddings and all those different things, and then the amalgamation of then utilizing both those skill sets, but doing it in a way that was, albeit, let's say, I'm not necessarily say easier, but certainly simpler, which was doing it online, meant that you could do that. And also, would you say that you kind of got a bit of a passion for marketing and the innovation of marketing as well at that point, or was that not the case back then?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, I think I said it earlier. Yeah, that I just geeked out on this marketing stuff and was reading books, obsessively listening to podcasts. I was in the car a lot at that particular time, and in that, like, the car was my own little marketing kind of university, I guess, for a while. And yeah, I got the bug for it, man, big time. It was because it was just new. It was fascinating, and I guess there was also a sort of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow as well.
Yeah. Very good. Well, look, then what happened? Like you say, sort of a few years into that journey, we became acquainted. And if I remember correctly, it was your sister-in-law that mentioned. Maybe, was that right? Was it Lucinda?
Yeah, that was right. Yeah, she mentioned you, and Vicky, my other half, was like pushing me to go. I think some coaching would really help you out. To like look at the mindset side of things, and I guess at that point, I was hitting some challenges. The marketing stuff was no longer new. I was like 3 years into geeking out on that, and I feel like I'd done, and I mean, maybe you can put this in a bit of way. I'd kind of done my apprenticeship. I knew how to copyright. I'd done that and done all of the stuff. So that was no longer new, and it became about, right, we need to build a business. And one of the other coaches I've worked with over the years said to me, like, 95% of business is mindset. And that is so true. And I knew at that point I needed to start leveling up my mindset so I could start growing to that next level. Certain stuff was holding me back. There's certainly definite programming, as I touched on right at the beginning of this, from the music industry, which was potentially unhelpful and potentially unhealthy for my entrepreneurial journey and my perspective on the rest of the world. And I also needed, with the benefit of hindsight, I needed someone else who had my corner. I felt like there's someone here who has got my back. He's pretty direct when he needs to be. He doesn't particularly blow smoke up my arse, but he'll tell me when something's good. He'll tell me when something needs working on. And that's kind of what I needed at that period of time.
And I think, again, just to sort of unpick the way that I saw it, it's like you say that you'd also put all this time, energy, and effort into building marketing. And marketing is great because it means that you're earning money. But one of the downsides of just focusing on the marketing and not looking at any of it, because marketing is a component of running a business, right? Is that you can have all the marketing in the world and you can be doing sales, but if you haven't got the other infrastructure, then your work-life balance can go completely out of sync, which when you've got a young family and things like that, that can obviously be a challenge as well, right? So, that's one of the things.
And I guess to continue what you were saying there is that I was still at that point where I needed more sales, more revenue, all of that kind of thing, and all the stuff that a business needs. And I was very much in the mindset of more is more. Keep working longer hours doing this. Yet I'd had friends and like people who were working 3 days a week and going, well, how do we get to this point of being able to have a healthier balance? And also I had, and I still do have, very, very high expectations of myself. I just expect myself to be able to do good stuff. And I've been in very competitive worlds as well. And I think that was unrealistic. I was putting unrealistic expectations on myself. And I really remember clearly because we started working, I don't know, it's like May 2020, maybe something like that. And I remember you say, for God's sake, give yourself a break. Look what's going on. You've just moved house. You've got a business. You've got a 3-year-old child at that point. And we're in the middle of a pandemic as well. I mean, there's a lot going on here. You've got to ease off. And I remember in one of our coaching sessions, I think one of the first things you did was make me take a Wednesday afternoon off. It was like, this is going in your diary today. And that was kind of huge. And I remember you celebrating me taking time off and not working, which seemed so counterintuitive when I felt like I just had to keep working to keep providing. Yet I had to realize that when you're building a business, you're building this entity which will keep going and going. And a great metaphor for this, particularly that I heard, is it's like a diesel locomotive or a steam locomotive. You spend all this time and effort getting it up to speed, but once you get it up there, it starts to stay up there. And you can then start taking a bit of time off here and there and go, because we moved near the seaside, and it was like, I remember you going, I think it's amazing you spent the day at the beach or something like that. It was so counterintuitive, but so what I started to need at that particular time.
I love the analogy on that, which is very apt for our conversation, is that without silence in between musical notes, it would just be white noise, and it's that those silence that actually makes it music and makes it enjoyable. And sometimes we forget that in life, and that's definitely okay. So that's really interesting. So there's one thing that I'm going to come back to in a moment, but in terms of the time when we had that first stint of working together, what would you say? So that was one of the moments. What would you say were some of the most influential or altering moments in that process that sort of moved you away from pain and moved more towards where you wanted to go on, for the people that are listening to this right now that may be experiencing similar challenges to when you were at that point?
So during the kind of period we worked together, actually, during that period that we worked together, we did something like 100% growth. Okay, the business doubled in that period of time, and there could be a lot of contributing factors to that, particularly online education, the pandemic, and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, you giving me so much more confidence and so much more belief in myself was so critical. I remember saying some really negative thing at one point, and you had just said to me, "Not on my watch." And it was like, oh, wait a moment, there's someone here who's got my back, believes in what I can do, has my corner. He also gets life as well, and I mean that's a critical component as well. I mean, I know you don't have kids, but the empathy that you've got for someone who does have kids is enormous. And it's definitely, when you've got like a 3-year-old that I had at that time, it was intense. And you were certainly rolling kind of with the punches with me, and I guess some kind of synchronicity when there was shit kicking off at home or whatever it might be that happened at various points. And it was real life. And it was like, well, how do I then deal with, I don't know, challenging situations at home, then pick up a business as well? And I guess the critical thing that I haven't also mentioned as well, that I was also coming out of a long period of burnout as well. And that had hugely colored my kind of perception of what I wanted to do in the world. I mean, I had so many doubts about, is this the right business for me? Am I cut out for this? I was only discussing this morning, like with someone, of like the worst thing about that whole burnout period was the morning anxiety of waking up in the morning and looking at the day going, I don't know if I can handle this. And then feeling like, one thing for me, which is so challenging through that period, was like feeling like my creativity had gone. And certainly with the information world, it's all about bringing our ideas from our head into something tangible and real that someone else can buy. And if you don't feel like you've got the energy there to do that, it's really, really tough. And so I needed someone at that stage who was with me, who could give me that belief that I could get back on that horse and really start to thrive and own my place in the world. And I don't believe you work with absolutely everyone. And it's like you had to pick me as a client to a certain extent and go, right, this is actually someone who I can face talking to every once or twice a week and having on the end of my WhatsApp every now and again when he's having a hard time or whatever. And so there has to be something that you spot from a client that's worth nurturing, if you know what I mean. And I think you could clearly see that. I hope you can anyway. So,
yeah, no, I absolutely do. I absolutely do. And I think that, so my four criteria, they're the same back then when we first started working together as they are now, is that is what they're looking to do going to benefit themselves, their family, their friends, their community, society, humanity, the universe? 2, is it a genuine challenge for them? 3, can we have a laugh along the way? And 4, are they willing to be 100% committed? It's those same criteria that we run things through to be able to check that. So I want to come back to something, because and thank you so much. It's been really great to hear. Obviously, a lot of these things, the growth and the development, I was aware of, and it's great for people to hear the transition that you've gone through and what you've done as a result of doing it. But there's one thing I want to come back to, because for me, I actually think it was when I became aware of it, was something that did have a big shift in what you were going on. So when you started to want to work with a coach, you specifically were looking for someone to help with mindset, maybe that previous business coach that's saying sort of mindset is 95% of the success in business, had some sort of impact on that. But one of the things that was very evident when I heard you speak is when I'm speaking with my clients and working with them, I'm listening on multiple levels. And one of the things that was very evident to me was actually your self-talk wasn't very positive at the time. So it would be things like the sort of thing we'd say, like when you mess up, you go, "Oh, you idiot, why did you do that?" And we're talking to ourselves, we're not talking to anybody else. But it was that type of language and that type of self-talk, which when we uncovered that a little bit, we realized that a lot of it was because, like you say, you've been used to being in an industry with like a 0.25 or 0.5% tolerance of what was acceptable to not be right. And what you'd done is you'd applied that across your whole life and your whole business, as opposed to that 90-minute set you're doing in the West End show. You were trying to apply that 24 hours a day, which is, like you say, completely unrealistic. And ultimately, happiness is equal to or greater than your expectations. So if your expectations are met, you're happy. If your expectations are not met, you're unhappy. So where you had such a high tolerance for what correct was, you were constantly being disappointed. What was it that we did, in your opinion, that made that shift for you to be more accepting of yourself and therefore feel better day to day and feel more forgiving, I suppose?
I think it's really hard to pinpoint like one thing, because we worked on lots of mindset. You got me reading lots of books and kind of starting to really go down that road. But it was so hard to pinpoint one thing. But a lot of it was just your belief in me, and that made such a difference, and pulling me up on like the negative self-talk or whatever, going like, you've got a place in this world, I want you to have it. And that was so important. And I was starting to feel like question at that point whether I really belonged with what I was doing at that point, because I mean, I took the burnout thing that we talked about before, and a lot of that I learned was about pacing myself, and you were getting me more to pace myself. And I think I was also coming to you having done the work, and you're going, yeah, you're doing the work here. and often I would feel like I was turning up incredibly unprepared or whatever, like I should have done more. I mean, it was so bizarre. Yet now I'm so much more gentle on myself. I'm so much, I mean, like just personally, I've had a bit of a coldy type thing for the past month or so, and so my productivity has been quite a lot lower than it should be. But I've gone like, we've got a business that's working here. The most important thing is to get better right now, and I'm frustrated to a certain extent that I haven't got the work done I planned, but we'll be okay. I'm not scared about the future now. It's like I can start to see a future. And I remember like you did all the North Star trajectory stuff and that kind of thing. And I remember looking back at it a few weeks ago because it was sitting in my G drive, and a lot of it, was coming to fruition. It's quite fascinating that that what you set your mind on does start to come.
Does indeed. It does indeed. What about the, because again, I know it's something that a lot of people suffer with. You mentioned when you're experiencing the burnout and you're working all the hours, that morning anxiety of almost fearing the day ahead.
Yeah,
How is that different now?
it's not there. I mean, I get up and kind of get on with the day. Don't get me wrong, some days are harder than others. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But I have a lot more structure to my days and my weeks, how I do things. I also have my team as well behind me. We've done a lot of investment in building my team, and so I have a group of guys and girls that support what I do, and so I can focus more on what I love doing, and certainly like how I spend my day to days now is it's much more. I mean, there's still times when I have to really graft. I'm in the middle of writing my fifth book at the moment, or I'm really going through it and checking it all works. And it's like, yeah, that's hard graft, but it only has to be done once, that kind of thing. But it's also like getting other people involved. And part of, I mean, during that burnout period was I felt so alone. It was me and one assistant working on this, and I'd gone from this really sociable music industry, like being out on gigs and that kind of thing, to being really by myself in this world. And I started to realize, and I think it was working with you, like having more of a vision of what I wanted the business to look like, in terms of like I want to get my mates involved, get guest coaches involved, have other people like working on the book for me, like I don't know, I've been talking to like a proper proofreader today, like in the past couple of days, and so that's another. And so these more kind of people, these contractors that you start bringing into your world, the more kind of fulfilled it becomes, because it's kind of fun. We're having this conversation now. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this is a Wednesday afternoon. This is quite a good way of spending a Wednesday afternoon, isn't it? Really.
The company's all right. You think the company's all right?
Yeah. The company's all right. It's average. Yeah. No. Yeah. So it was about starting to get a focus on what I wanted to do, and how I want to spend my time, and also having a vision of where it's going. And I mean, one of my big things is that I will go back to playing as well. And actually, that's reminded me of something else as well before I talk about playing. It is you introduced me to, I mean, the concept of gratitude as well. And there was no bigger time ever that I could have more gratitude than in the middle of a global pandemic, which wiped out the music industry or the performance side of it overnight, virtually, because I still kept going, and the online tuition world had a nice little tailwind behind it, shall we say? And I'm very grateful that I wasn't put in the position that so many of my colleagues have were put in at that time. And I had my own thing, I had my own security, and so much of like some of the values that we discussed, and I've always known it, is like freedom and choice is so huge of me. And it's the freedom of how I spend my days and my time and that kind of stuff. And I still kind of had that throughout the whole of the pandemic, when I had friends who were becoming butchers and stuff like that, and all sorts of madness going on. And like, I realized I've got my own thing. I'm not reliant on anybody else, and that's a good position to be in. It's not to say it doesn't come without its stresses, because it and strains, having that responsibility, but I'm not waiting for the phone to ring, which is a huge thing. And so, to sort of bring it forward, I mean, one of my big goals is certainly when we've got a little bit more growth in the business, and is to get back to playing and attack different areas of the industry with a fresh mindset, and try to do things that I didn't do before, because there's still plenty of things that I like, playing work that I want to do. So it's like the opportunity's there, and it's exciting what could transpire. That's for certain.
Love it. Well, James, look, thank you so much. It truly is wonderful to hear and catch up, really, because that's what I feel like we've done. We've just caught up and had a good catch up with a bunch of people here we get in. What would you say if someone right now is in the position that you were in May 2020 when we started working together, and there were 3 things that you would advise them, if you were almost advising yourself back then, knowing what you know now as a result of us working together, and maybe anything else, what would you be saying to those people right now that they should or shouldn't be doing?
Never, I think, underestimate the value of mindset within a situation. Work on that side of things, because it is often the thing that is holding so many people back. This is music to your ears, but get help, get coaching. I mean, having someone else fighting your corner, and sort of building you up when you need to be built up, maybe giving you a kick up the backside when that's appropriate, is hugely important, because it gives you, certainly with an experienced coach like you, you have the benchmarks of seeing a lot of different people perform, and in a lot of different ways. And so I certainly at the time only had myself to base it on, and all these kind of bullshit stories of people with their private jets in the internet marketing world, which is definitely, I mean, one of the reasons why I resonated with you right at the beginning, because there's certainly so many coaches that have ended up in this industry which have, I don't know, come out of corporate and, I don't know, bought a franchise or whatever it might be, but actually haven't done it. But it was very evident to me right from the word go that you'd done your time, and certainly were doing your time building your own business and your own empire at that moment in time. And also, I guess there were parallels as well. Like, I mean, whilst I am in the hobby space, and you're, more, I don't know, B2B maybe. There were certainly elements of how you structured your programs and insights you had, like, from the world of marketing and all that kind of stuff, which were so valuable to get sort of connected with. So yeah, I mean, that was 2 things.
That's 2. Third, let's go for 3.
Let's go for a third. I think the third is take action. I mean, do it. I mean, if you have mindset issues, that normally puts some level of resistance in there, doesn't it? To change, because change is a scary thing. And we all have the voices in our heads going, well, what if this doesn't work out? And you have to become cool with business that probably about 50% of what you do doesn't work. I mean, and I don't know, maybe another 25, 30, 40% of it probably gets average results, but then you're going to get that 10% which absolutely rockets. And I've experienced that. And you don't get to that 10% if you're not going to take action and try the other 50%. That's for certain. And so you have to. I mean, you kind of almost have to get comfortable with failure. I mean, which sounds really weird when we're on a self-development podcast talking about failure, but it's the failure that leads the. Maybe you can put this better, but it's the idea that leads to the idea, that kind of thing, to get the result. Does that make some sense? What I just said?
Yeah, it does. My kind of opinion on that is that there are no failures, only feedback, and you can learn those lessons, and ultimately life's happening for you, not to you. You know, so if something doesn't work out, it's because there is something better on the way, and it's an opportunity for you to learn and grow and develop in those ways. So no, I really do appreciate that, James, and I think people will have taken a lot from this, you know, for people that are listening to this and maybe having the various challenges, going through some challenges, because we all go through challenges, right? So that's extremely useful, and thank you very much for sharing that. So what's next? You know, so you've got e-bass guitar, you're going, what's next? You said that eventually you want to get back out and get playing again. For people that have been listening to this and they've been inspired, what can they look to see you doing in the coming months and years?
So I want to keep focused on the e-bass guitar for the foreseeable future. There's still plenty that I want to prove within this business, and I don't want to take my eye off the ball there. I mean, I guess it will go kind of two directions afterwards. Like, I definitely want to share some of the business insights that I've gleaned from this industry, talking about some kind of coaching kind of thing, potentially, whatever form that takes. I really am interested in also sharing more about what I learned. I mean, because certainly I'm very, very free and open with information in this world. If someone else wants to start their own bass guitar website, I will help them out, and I have done, because I respect anybody who has the tenacity to do what I've done and make a success of it, and anybody and the other guys in the industry which do. And there's only really ever a small minority which really takes action on things like that. And so I really want to kind of help people do that, because I believe there's enough market share. Certainly, I came from industries where it was dog eat dog, that kind of stuff. Like you couldn't work for that guy if you're working for this, and all of that kind of nonsense. And the online world for me has been very, very different, and it's a real joy helping people out and answering questions and sharing what I know. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to one day join you on a speaking gig on stage or something along those type of things. Will, that's for certain. And I'm sure that'll come in time. And then I do want to go back and do what I love, which is playing the bass guitar, being out there with muso friends. And I mean, certainly the musos are my people. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's a dark sense of humor to them, and I mean, there's nothing like being on a gig and having a great laugh. But even now, I know that when I've gone on gigs, because a few have happened recently, that I'm there because I want to be. I'm not there because I need the money. It totally changes your perspective. When you don't need the cash, you're there because you want to be. And if it's a terrible gig, you just go, well, so be it, rather than getting wound up about it. If it's a great gig, you just go, well, what a fabulous night out.
Love it. Love it. So talk about the website, because if there are some people right now that have been listening to this and they've been inspired by you, and I think, do you know what? I've always wanted to play the bass guitar. I've always wanted to learn about how to do this. Where can people find you? Where can people find out about e-bass guitar? And is there sort of any sort of offer that people can benefit from in order starting to learn from maybe your membership that you offer to people?
So head over to ebassguitar.com, check out that. We have a membership called the Bass Lab Plus. You can take a free 14-day trial to go and check it out, see if the bass guitar is for you. If you'd like to see me in action first, head over to our YouTube channel. I think, I don't know, we're something, 26,000 subscribers as we speak now. That kind of stuff. We focus in on beginner to intermediate folks. So if you're just starting out, this is it's a good place to check out, see if my teaching style is for you, if you find me a likable character on camera. So yeah, head over there. There's plenty out there that I've done over the last 5 or 6 years that you can just get your teeth stuck into.
Love it. Thank you very much. Well, James, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I don't even know if this is possible or not, but I thought it'd be cool because I've never done it on a podcast ever before. You play the bass guitar. Yeah. You're on a podcast together. Is there something you could play to play us out? I've never done this on a podcast, but I don't know if it's going to work with the sound. But I thought it'd be cool just to mix it up. I don't know if this is possible or not, but we could maybe give it a go.
Try it. I guess do you edit your podcast so we can make this a bit slicker? Or is this live? You're gonna let me see. I might be able to do this. Let me find out. I'm just plugging a bass guitar in as we speak.
So you know the man, he's a real showman when he just whips up the guitar and goes, "Hey, I'm willing to do this."
Right. Wow. Right. Hold on. I can't actually hear what I'm playing. Right. Can you hear that bass guitar?
I can hear it. Yeah, I can hear it.
Actually, hold on. I'll put one headphone in just to be really showbiz, so I could actually hear what on earth I'm going to play. Right. Gosh. Right. Okay, it does work. I don't know. What do you want? I mean,
I don't know. I thought it'd just be an opportunity for you to showcase your ability.
I don't know. What was that? There's something like Jackson's "Shake Your Body Down" that came to the mind there.
Very good. Round of applause from me. That is a Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast first. So there you have it. The man himself playing the bass guitar. So James, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. And I really appreciate you taking the time to share your insights and what's been going on. And I truly look forward to seeing you continue to develop and take action on your North Star and take the steps towards making that become a reality. So yeah, thank you very much.
Well, thank you to you, Will. And I mean, keep doing what you're doing. You are one of the good guys that's out there, and do work with him if you fancy it. So there you go.
You're a star. Guys, for everyone that's been listening, until next time, make it happen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.